Ethan's mind reeled as the world solidified around him. The familiar aroma of his apartment, stale pizza, unwashed laundry, the faint scent of desperation, hit him like a physical blow. His hands, both flesh and bone, trembled as he gripped the edge of the chipped kitchen counter. 50 years of hardship, compressed into a single, dizzying moment. It actually worked, he breathed, staring at his intact left hand, the same hand he would lose tomorrow, or rather, had lost in that other timeline. He flexed his fingers, relishing the feeling he'd yearned for half a century. The calendar on the wall mocked him with the date, October 15, 2024. One day before everything went sideways. His phone buzzed, a message from Anna. "Miss you already. Can't wait for tonight. Love you." Ethan deleted it without a second thought. The Anna he remembered had abandoned him, scrambling over him to escape as the infected swarmed. Her actions had cost him his hand and nearly his life. This time, he had different plans. He moved with the practiced efficiency born of decades of survival. His hidden bag contained everything he needed: new identity papers, property deeds, bank access codes. Within the hour, he'd listed his apartment at a ridiculously low price. "Are you sure about this?" the real estate agent stammered, clearly unnerved. "Family emergency," Ethan replied curtly. By noon, he'd maxed out several credit cards and secured a hefty loan. The bank teller's concerned look meant nothing. In 24 hours, money wouldn't matter. At the gun store, he stocked up on weapons and ammunition. The clerk raised an eyebrow at his choices. "Planning for the big one, hey?" he quipped. Ethan didn't respond. The abandoned fallout shelter he'd found years into the initial outbreak was located miles outside the city. He'd spent weeks clearing and fortifying it in the first timeline. This time, he had hours. Canned goods, water purification tablets, medical kits, ammunition, everything was methodically arranged, a testament to the harsh lessons he'd learned. His phone buzzed again. "Anna." "Ethan, where are you? I've been calling all day. What happened to our plans?" He could hear the panic rising in her voice, the same voice that had whispered apologies as she left him to die. "Something came up," he said coldly. "Don't wait up." He hung up, letting her stew in uncertainty. Tomorrow, she'd understand what betrayal felt like. Night fell as Ethan finished securing the shelter entrance. His phone displayed a dozen missed calls from Anna. As he drove back towards the city for one last supply run, the radio crackled with the first reports of strange occurrences at local hospitals. It was beginning. His watch read 2:47 a.m. when he saw her staggering down Madison Avenue. "Anna!" The jerky movements, the vacant stare, the initial symptoms were already present. "Ethan," she cried, spotting his car. "Thank God. Something's wrong with everyone. I don't feel right. We need..." He accelerated past, not even slowing down. In his rearview mirror, he saw her grow smaller, arms outstretched in a desperate plea. Behind her, shadows moved in the darkness. "Goodbye, Anna," he whispered, checking his supplies. The weight of his intact hand felt unusual, but he'd adjust. The real work was just starting. As dawn broke over the city, the first screams echoed. Ethan sealed himself inside the shelter, the reinforced concrete walls a barrier against the rising chaos. This time, he was prepared. This time, he had knowledge, resources, and most importantly, two whole hands. Somewhere out there, a violet-skinned woman in a crippled spaceship was about to change everything he understood about survival, humanity, and second chances. Devon's head swam as the world coalesced. The familiar smells of his apartment, stale coffee, laundry detergent, a subtle undercurrent of normalcy, struck him like a physical force. His hands, flesh and blood, quivered as he braced himself against the cool formica of the kitchen counter. 50 years of suffering, compressed into a single, disorienting instant. "It worked," he murmured, gazing at his whole right arm, the arm he was supposed to lose tomorrow, the arm he had lost in that other life. He flexed his fingers, savoring the forgotten sensation. The date on the wall calendar mocked him, October 15, 2024. One day before everything turned to ash. His phone vibrated. A text from Serena. Missing you like crazy. Excited about dinner tonight? Love you. Devon erased the message. The Serena he knew had abandoned him, climbing over his injured body as the infected advanced. Her actions had cost him dearly. This time, he had a different script. Moving with a precision honed by years of brutal experience, he retrieved his go-bag from its hiding place. New identification, property records, bank codes, everything was there. An hour later, his house was on the market, listed at a ridiculously low price. The real estate agent stammered, clearly disturbed, "Are you certain?" "This is a steal." "Urgent family matter," Devon replied curtly, ending the discussion. By midday, he'd secured the maximum amount on multiple credit cards and a sizable personal loan. The bank manager's concerned look didn't register. In less than a day, money wouldn't be an issue. At the gun shop, he acquired an arsenal of weapons and ammunition. The salesman joked, "Prepping for doomsday?" Devon simply nodded. The forgotten Cold War-era bunker, his sanctuary in the original timeline, lay 30 miles outside the city limits. He'd once spent weeks restoring it, now he had mere hours. Provisions, water purification, medical gear, ammunition, everything meticulously organized, reflecting the bitter lessons he'd learned. His phone buzzed. "Serena." "Devon, where are you?" "I've been calling." "What about our plans?" He heard the anxiety in her voice, the same voice filled with false regret as she'd left him for dead. "Something came up," he said icily. "Don't expect me." He ended the call. Let her stew in uncertainty. Tomorrow, she would comprehend the true meaning of betrayal. Darkness descended as Devon finalized the bunker's defenses. His phone displayed a growing number of missed calls from Serena. As he drove back toward the city for a final supply run, the car radio crackled with initial reports of unusual incidents at nearby hospitals. It was happening. At 2:47 a.m., his watch illuminated Serena's figure stumbling down Madison Avenue. The signs were already apparent: erratic movements, vacant expression, the virus's early stages. "Devon," she shrieked, recognizing his car. "Please help. Something's terribly wrong. Everyone's. I don't feel right." He accelerated, leaving her behind. In his rearview mirror, her pleas grew fainter, her outstretched arms disappearing into the encroaching darkness. "So long, Serena," he whispered, checking his supplies. His restored arm felt unfamiliar, but he would adapt. The true challenge was only just beginning. As the first rays of dawn illuminated the city, the initial screams echoed. Devon sealed himself within the bunker, the reinforced concrete a shield against the escalating pandemonium. He was prepared. He had knowledge, resources, and crucially, both his arms. Somewhere out there, a woman with lavender skin in a damaged spaceship was about to reshape everything he knew about survival, humanity, and the nature of second chances. The bunker's fluorescent lights buzzed as Devon systematically reviewed his supplies. Explosions echoed from the city, the sounds rattling through the concrete walls. The emergency broadcast advised citizens to stay indoors, reporting military checkpoints and static. "Right on schedule," Devon muttered. The power grid failed, his backup generator humming to life, another hard-won lesson. He unfurled the detailed maps he'd memorized, marking potential supply routes and danger zones. A notification flashed on his satellite phone, the last functioning communication network. Another message from Serena: "Devon, please, I'm terrified. At St. Mary's. They say it's a virus." He deleted it, unfinished. The hospital would be ground zero. She'd chosen her path 50 years ago, or would tomorrow? Time travel made tenses complicated. "Focus," he told himself, checking his weapons. The Glock felt familiar in his restored hand, but the muscle memory of his other arm lingered. He'd need to retrain. The bunker's perimeter sensor pinged. Devon switched to the external cameras. A small group of recently infected stumbled by, their movements displaying the virus's telltale spasms. He recognized his neighbor, Mr. Henderson, still in his postal worker uniform. "Sorry, old friend," Devon whispered. "Not this time either." He monitored the radio frequencies, documenting civilization's disintegration with a chilling detachment. At 8:47 p.m., something new occurred. A high-pitched whine, unlike anything he'd ever heard, cut through the static. The bunker's sensors blared warnings as something massive traversed the sky at impossible velocity. Devon grabbed his rifle and night vision gear. This was unexpected. In 50 years of apocalyptic hell, he'd never encountered this. The survivalist in him screamed caution, but the tactician knew he had to investigate any deviation from the established timeline. He sealed his hazmat suit and checked his oxygen levels. The virus was airborne in its initial stages. The airlock hissed as he stepped into a world already transformed. Bodies littered the streets, some twitching in the early throes of infection, others lying still, victims of more advanced stages. The air hung heavy with the metallic scent of blood and burning debris. Devon moved silently, years of ingrained instinct guiding him. A trail of destruction led northwest, trees uprooted, earth scorched, a path of devastation unlike anything he'd witnessed. The crash site glowed an eerie lavender. Steam hissed from twisted metal, an alloy unlike anything earthly. The craft, clearly extraterrestrial, had gouged a quarter-mile trench through the forest. "Well," Devon muttered, chambering around, "this definitely wasn't in the original script." Movement caught his eye. A figure emerged from the wreckage. For an instant, he thought it was another infected. Then he saw her clearly. Lavender skin that seemed to absorb the fading light. Silver hair that drifted as if underwater. Her form was humanoid, but something more, every proportion perfect, every movement graceful, even in evident pain. Blood, darker than human, trickled from shimmering wounds. Their eyes met across the devastation. Hers were solid silver, devoid of pupils, yet somehow conveying volumes of unspoken emotion, pain, fear, resolve. She spoke, her voice resonating with harmonies that made his teeth vibrate. "Human," she stated, each word meticulously pronounced, "you should not be here." The bunker's fluorescent lights hummed a steady, monotonous tune as Thomas meticulously inventoried his supplies. Explosions echoed from the city, distant tremors vibrating through the reinforced concrete walls. The emergency broadcast system, already faltering, advised citizens to shelter in place, mentioning military checkpoints and then dissolving into static. Like clockwork, Thomas muttered, a grim satisfaction in his voice. The power grid sputtered and died, but his backup generator kicked in seamlessly, a testament to hard-won experience. He unfurled his meticulously detailed maps, marking anticipated supply routes and potential hazard zones. A notification flashed on his satellite phone, the last vestiges of a functional communication network. Another message from Sarah. "Tom, please, I'm so frightened. At St. Mary's. They're saying it's a virus, a contagion." He deleted the message, unfinished. The hospital would be a death trap. She'd chosen her path 50 years ago, or tomorrow. Temporal mechanics made tenses confusing. Focus, he reminded himself, checking his weapons. The Glock felt comfortable in his restored right hand, yet the phantom muscle memory of his other arm lingered, a ghostly reminder of what he'd lost and regained. He'd need to retrain, to recalibrate his instincts. The bunker's perimeter sensor pinged. Thomas switched to the external cameras. A small cluster of recently infected shuffled past, their movements exhibiting the virus's signature, jerky spasms. Among them, he recognized Mr. Chen, his neighbor, still in his postal worker uniform. "Sorry, old man," Thomas murmured, a pang of regret echoing in his voice. "Not this time either." He monitored the radio frequencies, listening with a chilling detachment to civilization's unraveling, documenting the descent into chaos. At 8:47 p.m., something unexpected happened. A high-pitched whine, unlike anything he'd encountered before, pierced through the static. The bunker's sensors blared warnings as something enormous traversed the sky at an impossible velocity. Thomas grabbed his rifle and night vision gear. This was unprecedented. In 50 years of apocalyptic hell, he'd never witnessed this phenomenon. The survivalist in him screamed caution, yet the tactician knew he had to investigate any deviation from the established timeline. He sealed his hazmat suit, meticulously checking his oxygen levels. The virus was airborne in its initial stages, a detail etched in his memory. The airlock hissed, releasing him into a world already irrevocably altered. Bodies littered the streets, some convulsing in the early stages of infection, others lying still, overtaken by the virus's more advanced stages. The air hung thick with the metallic tang of blood and burning debris. Thomas moved silently, guided by years of ingrained instinct. A trail of devastation led northwest, trees uprooted, earth scorched, a path of destruction unlike anything he'd seen. The crash site glowed with an eerie, otherworldly lavender luminescence. Steam hissed from twisted, alien metal, an alloy unlike anything terrestrial. The craft, undeniably extraterrestrial, had gouged a quarter-mile trench through the forest. "Well," Thomas muttered, chambering around. "This changes things." Movement flickered at the edge of his vision. A figure emerged from the wreckage. For a heart-stopping moment, he thought it was another infected. Then he saw her clearly. Violet skin that seemed to absorb the ambient light. Silver hair that drifted as if suspended in water. Her form was humanoid, yet somehow more, every proportion perfect, every movement graceful, even amidst evident pain. A viscous fluid, darker than human blood, trickled from wounds that shimmered with an unearthly light. Their eyes met across the devastation. Hers were solid silver, devoid of pupils, yet somehow conveying a depth of unspoken emotion, pain, fear, and an unwavering resolve. She spoke, her voice resonating with otherworldly harmonies that made his teeth vibrate. "Human," she stated, each word meticulously enunciated, as if newly learned. "You are not meant to be here." Thomas kept his rifle trained on her, his mind racing, assessing the situation. "Lady," he replied, "nobody's asterisk meant asterisk to be here. But here we are." After several weeks spent at Martin's farm, Valeria began to get used to the realities of the Earth. Her reaction to simple things continued to amaze Martin. "Martin, your metal beast is making terrible noises," she screamed one day when she heard the sound of a chainsaw running. Martin hurried over to her and found Valeria watching him with a mixture of horror and curiosity. "It's a chainsaw, I'm sawing wood," Martin explained. "Amazing," Valeria drawled, thoughtfully walking around the chainsaw. "Does it work on all Earth materials? Perhaps if we try it on you." "No, no, and no." Martin's face turned crimson. "That's not how it works at all." She smiled slyly, "Your complexion speaks of embarrassment." "How funny." Later that day, he found her experimenting with his fishing rod. "I have found an ancient tool for catching aquatic creatures," Valeria solemnly declared, waving a fishing rod. "It's a fishing rod," Martin replied wearily. "But why catch these creatures? Can't you just go into the water and take them?" She threw the rod with such force that the line got tangled in the branches of a nearby tree. "I suppose it takes some skill," she said, trying to untangle the line. Despite all her oddities, Martin was getting used to her presence. She was smart, quick to grasp Earth customs, though she interpreted them in her own way. And, although he would never admit it, he liked their funny dialogues. This idyll was disrupted that evening when they saw familiar lights in the sky. "The bloodhounds are back." They brought neural scanners with them, Valeria said, her cheerful mood instantly evaporating. "The basement won't save us anymore." "Then we have one way out," Martin grabbed her arm. "Run away." They rushed to the minibus, which, thanks to the princess's efforts, was now equipped not only with a cloaking device, but also with other amazing alien gadgets. "Are you sure that this construction of yours will fly?" Valeria asked, watching Martin insert a small crystal into the dash. He carried her to the medical bay he'd set up, laying her gently on the examination table. Up close, her alien nature became even more apparent. Subtle patterns shifted beneath her violet skin, like oil on water. Her breathing followed an unusual rhythm, 3 quick inhalations followed by a long pause. "What are you?" he wondered aloud, preparing to address her visible wounds. "Someone who's been looking for you, Thomas Connor." He spun, weapon drawn. Nera's eyes were open, that impossible silver gaze fixed on him. "How do you know my name?" The gun didn't waver. "My full name," she corrected, sitting up with a fluid grace that belied her injuries. "The same way I know you've traveled through time. The same way I know about the virus, the incident, the 50 years of hardship you've endured." Her head tilted. "The real question is, do you want to know why I'm here?" Thomas felt the weight of both timelines pressing down on him. He had decades of survival experience and fresh memories of a world not yet destroyed. Now, a new variable threatened to change everything. "Talk fast," he said, keeping the gun raised. "And make it good." Nera's perfect lips curved in a smile that was both mysterious and challenging. "The virus that's about to ravage your world, it's not of terrestrial origin." She paused, letting that sink in. "And I'm part of the team that was supposed to stop it." A distant explosion rattled the bunker's walls. Above them, civilization continued its scheduled collapse. But here, underground, Thomas felt reality shift once again. "Supposed to," he echoed, already dreading the answer. "Someone sabotaged my ship," she said, her voice hardening. "Someone who wants this event to happen. Someone who knew we were coming." Her silver eyes locked with his. "The same someone who orchestrated your difficult situation 50 years ago, or tomorrow, depending on your perspective." Thomas slowly lowered his weapon. "You're saying none of this was an accident?" "The incident, the virus, all of it." "I'm saying," Nera replied, standing despite her injuries, "that you're not the only one trying to change history." She stepped closer, her violet skin seeming to glow in the bunker's harsh lighting. "The question is, are you prepared to learn just how deep this conspiracy goes?" Thomas thought of Sarah, of the injury he'd suffered, of 50 years spent surviving a hell that hadn't happened yet. He thought of the impeccable timing of Nera's arrival, the impossible odds of their meeting. "Lady," he said finally, "I didn't come back just to play the same game with different pieces." Her smile widened, revealing teeth that seemed to sparkle like diamonds. "Good. Because from here on out, all the rules are about to change." The bunker sensors chose that moment to scream a warning. Multiple contacts were approaching, fast. "Those wouldn't happen to be friends of yours?" Thomas asked, checking his ammunition. Nera's expression turned grim. "No. The ones who shot me down. They'll be coming to finish the job." Her silver eyes met his. "Still want to help me?" Thomas chambered around. "Way I see it, you already changed my timeline. Might as well find out why." Above them, something heavy impacted the ground. The bunker's lights flickered. "Just tell me one thing," he said as they moved to defensive positions. "In this new timeline you're creating, do I get to keep both arms?" For the first time, Nera laughed, a sound like crystal wind chimes in a storm. "Oh, Thomas Connor," she said, her hands glowing with energy. "If we survive the next hour, I'll make sure you get everything you lost. And more." The bunker ceiling creaked ominously. The game had changed indeed. And the next moves would determine not just their survival, but the fate of 2 civilizations. The following weeks saw Daniel consolidate his power base. He used his reader ability to turn potential rivals into allies, offering genuine assistance and demonstrating an uncanny understanding of their motivations. Lady Nora's network of informants proved invaluable, as did Princess Astra's extensive trade connections. Even Lady Kira, whose nightly visits to Daniel's chambers were now the subject of much court gossip, provided crucial intelligence on her house's military capabilities. Daniel noted with satisfaction that Elira observed his every move, often watching his diplomatic sessions from hidden alcoves. Her emotional turmoil grew with each successful negotiation, each display of his growing influence. One afternoon, Daniel managed to broker a peace treaty between 2 houses that had been locked in a bitter feud for centuries. The court erupted in applause, and even the most cynical nobles acknowledged his skill. Across the vast hall, Daniel met Elira's gaze. For a fleeting moment, he saw genuine admiration in her eyes before her carefully constructed mask snapped back into place. That evening, he found her alone in the palace gardens. "Impressive performance today," she said, her voice cool. "Though I wonder how many of your intimate allies contributed to that solution." "Jealous, my queen?" Daniel asked, moving closer. Elira spun around, her eyes flashing. "Don't flatter yourself," she snapped. "Your dalliances with court women are beneath my notice." But her emotional signature betrayed her words. Daniel stepped closer still, close enough to catch the subtle scent of her perfume. "Then why do you watch me so carefully?" he asked softly. "Why track my every move, every meeting, every visitor?" "I monitor all potential threats," Elira retorted, but she didn't step back. "Is that what I am to you? A threat?" Daniel reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. Her skin was cool to the touch, but her aura blazed with suppressed emotion. For a moment, the air crackled with unspoken desires. Then she pulled away, her composure restored. "Don't mistake political necessity for personal interest, little heir," she said, her voice regaining its icy edge. But as she walked away, Daniel smiled. He awoke to the sound of birdsong. Sunlight warmed his face. He was lying in a field of green grass, his power armor gone, but miraculously, both his arms intact. Beside him, Nera stirred, her violet skin shimmering in the morning light. "Thomas," she whispered, her silver eyes searching his. "Are you a hole?" He flexed his fingers, marveling at the familiar sensation. "I am," he breathed. What happened?" "We did it," Nera said, sitting up, a triumphant smile on her face. "The virus is neutralized. Humanity's evolution is underway. And the timeline." She paused, her eyes twinkling. "Let's just say it's optimized." "Optimized?" Thomas echoed, still trying to process everything. "What does that mean?" "It means," Nera said, taking his hand, "you get to keep both your arms, your memories of both timelines, and me." She leaned in, her lips brushing his. "Though," she added with a playful smirk, "we might need to discuss that whole alien goddess thing. It's a bit much, even for me." Thomas laughed, pulling her close. He didn't care about optimized timelines or alien conspiracies. He had her. He had both his arms. And for the first time in a very long time, he had hope. The world around them felt fresh, vibrant, full of possibility. The air was clean, the sky a brilliant blue. It was a new beginning, a second chance, not just for them, but for all of humanity. "So," Thomas said, nuzzling her hair, "what now?" Nera smiled, her eyes full of mischief. "Well," she said, her hand resting on her stomach where a faint purple glow emanated from beneath her skin, "first, we have a little explaining to do about how alien babies are made. And then," she added, her smile widening, "we can finally watch all those Star Wars movies you keep quoting." Thomas groaned playfully. "You're going to hate the prequels," he warned. "Oh, I doubt that," Nera purred, her eye sparkling. "I have a feeling I'm going to enjoy everything about this new timeline. Especially," she added, pulling him closer, "the parts that involve you." And as the sun rose higher, casting its golden rays across the reborn world, Thomas knew, with a certainty that went beyond logic or reason, that she was right. Their adventure was just beginning. And it was going to be one hell of a ride.